Morning, bonjour. Today I want to tell you the story of the Mississauga Anishinaabe and the territory that they have called home for time immemorial. Nowadays, we're stuck on reserves. Well, most of us are stuck on reserves, separated from our whole nationhood. And it wasn't always like that. So, before contact happened, before Confederation, we were known as the Mississauga Anishinaabe. And we were known for that because we would travel along the Mississauga River. It was our main form of transportation. And so we'd paddle up that river, following the game with each seasons. But our main source of food was the salmon, the Atlantic salmon that would come down the St. Lawrence River into Lake Ontario. And they would spawn in the rivers and the streams. And that was what we were known for, is keeping to those river mouths. And we learned to harvest that salmon, and we survived and thrived off of that salmon. And that's why we were known as the people of the salmon, or the people of the big river mouths. And I think that's so beautiful. And the Mississauga Anishinaabe were just although we were a massive group of people, we were also part of the greater nation of the Anishinaabe, and that is a massive group of people. But I'm not going to talk about that massive group of people. Today I'm just going to focus on my people. We also believed in a spirit, but we called it a manado, and that was Midday Manado. And we fully and completely believed in everything that this spirit gave us, whether it was dreams, whether it was visions, whether it was instructions, medicines. We followed that spirit, and we loved that spirit with everything that we had. But that sort of changed around 1640 and onward. That was when the Jesuits and the missionaries sort of came into contact with us. And as soon as that happened, things started happening, the colonization of our land started occurring. And we started seeing different ways of living. In that new way of life, the Jesuits called it Christianity. And we didn't fully understand what that meant because there was a language barrier between the two peoples. They didn't really speak our language. We 100% did not speak theirs. And so it wasn't until a few prominent figures, Peter Jones being one of them, he was Midday, but he never really resonated with that life. And so his father, which was a white man, he sent him to go learn from the Jesuits, and he found himself in Jesus and Christianity. He absolutely fell in love with that spirituality. And so he was educated, he learned how to write English, he learned how to speak English, and that really made him kind of a very important figure in our history of peoples. So all of this was occurring around the 1800s. So as I said before, 1640, 1800s, that's around 200 years, give or take. So all of that contact was occurring, and there was a lot of strife happening with disease, with loss of culture. And so Peter Jones took it upon himself to educate his people. And I'm sure that he totally thought that he was helping his people. And to an extent, I believe that he was. he was definitely helping his people because he saw that there was a nation that was taking over this land, and he knew that we had to sort of evolve in order to survive. And so he translated the Bible into Anishinaabemowin for our people, and that is sort of what sparked the change. Like, it was like just like that. And we were able to see that way of life, and some of us resonated more with that. So, as all of this is going down, our territory, which was like once massive, was slowly shrinking inwards because people like farmers, settlers were coming in and they didn't understand our way of living. No one owned the land in our eyes. And but in their eyes, like, they had like a full on paper that said that they could. Anyways, so before colonization, our land stretched from the northern shores of Lake Ontario to Lake Erie, and then almost all the way to Niagara, which is massive. It was massive. And to think that in just a couple hundred years, we were shrunk to reserve systems. So the reserve systems came into play around I believe it was 1876. So that's just a little ways off from Peter Jones' death in 1856. So once the reserves started happening, the government put us on those reserves. So think of that, a massive amount of land to just being put in little communities, how that would affect one's culture, one's language. So, although all of that was occurring, we were also going to war. We sided with the British in 1812, and a lot of people did not make it through, but we were known as sort of a guerrilla style fighting. And I thought that was so cool and so brave of our people because I feel like even though we were beaten down, we still had that courage within us. And to this day, you still feel it in our people, that courage, that love for each other, that love for the land. And that's truly what we were fighting for, is our territory, because these people were going to come and take it. And I think that is so brave. And while that was occurring, and some years later, we were signing treaties throughout all of this. So basically, we were signing treaties even before like Confederation, which like the dish with one spoon with the Haudenosaunee people, which basically talked about us having a respect for each other's sovereignty and offering respect to each nation whenever they were visiting each other. We wouldn't like raise up arms against each other. And so it just shows that treaties are more than just land ownership or land successions. You know what I mean. But later on, that's sort of what they became. So Treaty 20, the one that occurred of 1818, was when we ceded about 2 million acres of land to the government, so farmers could just farm the land and exploit all of the resources. And we were basically being shoved onto reserves throughout this time also. But it really wasn't until the Williams Treaty of 1923 that really affected us, the way we lived. In my opinion, the way we lived. It took away our hunting rights. It was not a nation to nation agreement. Basically, our people were starving to death, and we couldn't hunt, we couldn't fish, because the game, not the game wardens, the Indian agent, or I guess they were game wardens too, they would just throw us in jail. And so, really, like, we were starving. And then here comes the government offering us this sum of money. And of course, we were going to take it. How else were we going to survive that winter? So, I feel like it was actually like brave of them to do that. But yeah, I think it was a very brave decision for my people to make, to be able to sort of offer up these inherent rights that everyone should have. Everyone should be able to like harvest and use the land in like a good way, like not over harvesting or whatnot. But my people were in a very difficult place, and so they just, it was this or starve. And yeah, I fully believe that it was a very brave decision for them to basically sign that treaty, sign their names on that treaty, and to get that. It wasn't even a lot of money. It would have been like $30. I'm not sure what the conversion would be from that time period to now, but it got them through the winter because I'm here, you know. But yeah, so my people went through it. The Mississauga Anishinaabe, well, all Indigenous people, they went through it. But to be able to be here talking about my history and seeing the strength that it took to be able to survive those times, I I fully believe that like we survived for a reason. We persevered for a reason. And it was because of that courage we carry. It was because of that love that we have for not only each other, but that land. We were able to keep that language. We have people going to school learning for that language, to carry that language on to the next generation. And I think it just shows them the absolute resiliency that the Mississauga Anishinaabe have within them, to be able to go from this to this. I think that it takes absolute grit and strength, but the future can only knows what comes next. And I think that the Mississauga Anishinaabe will continue to persevere, will continue to grow, and will continue to reclaim that knowledge, reclaim their territory, their rights. But yeah, that's the story of the Mississauga Anishinaabe, my people, their home, the land that they called home, and their love for that home. Miigwech.